Alright, sorry for the long delay for this video. I mentioned in the last video I did that I was sick and I was slowly getting better. Well, not so much. Right after I did that video, I nearly lost my voice and could barely talk for the past few days, and I finally got my voice back, so I'm ready to talk about one of the most insane episodes of television I have ever seen. Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review, and today we're talking about episode 10, the season finale of Ash vs. Evil Dead, titled The Dark One. Where do I begin on this episode? This is my favorite one of the entire season. I was always debating between episode 2 and 8 as the best one of the season, and this one just blows those two out of the water. From start to finish, this episode is scary, funny, insane, weird, and just all the perfect Evil Dead elements blended together amazingly. There were moments in this episode that felt like they were directed by Sam Raimi. The director did a great job of emulating his style while not overdoing it. There are just a few select moments that just felt pure Sam Raimi. There's even a Three Stooges eye poke at one point in this episode that I loved. And there's a lot of really great creepy elements to this one that the other episodes didn't have, like the Deadite kid that came out of nowhere. That thing is just freaky as hell. That thing was great. And then that scene where Pablo spends this entire episode with the face of the Book of the Dead stuck on him. He's like possessed, but he's also trying to fight it. He's half aware, which is just a terrifying idea of just knowing you can't control what you're doing. There's a scene where he's choking Kelly, and he knows what he's doing, and he's just like, Ash, stop, and that was nuts. Anyway, there's a scene in this episode where he's puking out the Deadite kid, which is just disgusting, and the effects in this episode are the best of the entire show. There's no dodgy CGI shots that look iffy or bad. There's a ton of practical stuff, especially starting with the opening of this episode, which just kicks it off. So you have the big reveal that Ruby is one of the Dark Ones, the writer of the Necronomicon, and then Deadite Amanda comes in, and the way Ash kills her is just, it perfectly sets the tone for what the rest of this episode's gonna be. With him just gutting her with the chainsaw and just slicing her up. It's just perfectly Evil Dead. Of course, Ash getting blood all over him, just in classic Evil Dead style. And then he has to venture into the cellar, which, if you know anything about the previous Evil Dead movies, the cellar is not the best place to go to. Even when he gets into the cellar, there's a great throwback to Evil Dead 2, where you see the skeleton of Jake, the guy from the second movie. Just a great little throwback to Evil Dead 2. I like how this episode was able to connect back to the previous episodes and make it like one whole story. You have him still talking about going to Jacksonville, Florida, or the scene where he falls down the steps, which had a great cheesy looking effect of him falling down the steps, which just felt right out of Evil Dead 2. And he wakes up in his trailer from in the first episode when he's high with the girl and reads out of the Book of the Dead. And just that's a great callback to the first episode where he has the wooden hand. And I like that, just connecting the entire story as a whole. That's what it just felt like to me, and that was really cool. There's a lot of great surreal Evil Dead moments in here that I just love. I love it when Evil Dead just goes weird and crazy. Like, that was my one major flaw with the Evil Dead remake, which is actually a film I quite enjoy. I don't have many issues with it, but my problem with it was that it was so straightforward and not as surreal and as weird. And this episode has all those surreal and weird stuff. You have that mouth on the doorknob, or that eyeball in the wall, or the scene where Kelly shoots at the cellar door and it just starts bleeding. Just some great surreal stuff like that just makes Evil Dead stand out for most horror series, and I always love those moments because it just adds to the unpredictability of the series. Just the fact that anything can happen. Yeah, there could be an eyeball on the wall, just because why not? Just any crazy stuff can happen, and I love that. And the character who I never really learned her name, but oh my god, so much crazy stuff happens to her. I feel so bad for her character. From when Kelly shoots the eyeball on the wall and bleeds all over her, or when Ash chops Amanda in half and the blood splashes on her face, where she gets all the nails in the leg and on her face. I feel so bad for her, but it's just that classic Evil Dead stuff. Just let's just torture one character for the heck of it. Like Bruce Campbell in the original Evil Dead, just constantly getting tortured. And then there's great stuff with Kelly, who at one point in the episode gets locked outside of the cabin. There's a lot of great character moments with her where she ends up setting the house on fire. Stuff like that, and I like that progression of the character of her just turning into a badass, and I thought that was really cool. And the ending where Ash confronts Ruby, it goes a different way than you expect. You expect it to just explode into this big elaborate scene like at the end of Evil Dead 2 where Henrietta becomes the big creature and fights him, but it doesn't. It doesn't go that way, and I like it. You had this good confrontation between Ash and Pablo where he's fighting Pablo. It was intense for me because I did not want to see Pablo die. So that was a great scene, something I didn't expect to happen in the show, Ash fighting Pablo. But then when he actually confronts Ruby, he gives him this deal where all the burden of the Deadites and everything will be taken off of Ash and be all on her, and she'll be like the gatekeeper or the godfather, as they mentioned in this episode, of the Deadites and keep them all in line, because apparently she means well. She's actually a good character in a way. And of course, Ash takes the deal, because he's Ash. And even though it seems like a stupid move for him to make, I liked the genuineness of it. Like, you really felt like Ash was thinking it was a smart idea, not just thinking like an idiot. And I like that. I like that kind of... I like when Ash has those moments where you feel like he's really trying to be a good person. And I like that, although it ultimately is not going to pay off in the end. But I like that, and also has one of the best lines ever where he just goes, "Alright, you'll take all the Deadites, we'll go to Jacksonville, Florida, and we'll have $10,000 in cash." He just goes, "I'm not a bank." He just goes, "Gas money?" He goes, "Sure, gas money." He goes, "Yeah." Classic Ash line, and I love that moment. Just great moment of levity in this dramatic scene. And then you get to the final scene where Ash, Pablo, and Kelly are just driving along Jacksonville. And on the radio, you hear this news report come up about all these sinkholes that keep popping up. And then Ash just quickly turns that off like, "Oh, we don't need to hear that," and drives off, and the final shot is them driving off, and a sinkhole appears behind them. Now, this sinkhole thing, that was actually mentioned in the first episode. There's a really brief scene where there's a news report in the background it's talking about the sinkhole that's appearing. So, what is the sinkhole? What's the deal with that? I'm assuming it's something like hell just breaking loose into Earth or something like that, something crazy like that, something that's going to escalate into a huge event in Season 2, and that's what we're building up to, and I thought it was a great ending. It wasn't the big cliffhanger ending that I thought we were going to get. It's more just subtle, more of a build-up of something to come, and I'm okay with that. I just was expecting something bigger, but I'm not disappointed that I didn't get that. So overall, like I said, this episode's amazing. My favorite of the season, just pure Evil Dead from the horror elements that I said some previous episodes were lacking. This one has it in spades. Just great horror elements, great creepy moments, great gore effects, great humor, just a perfect mesh of what Evil Dead is, and is amazing. So, as a whole, this season, because this season is essentially Evil Dead 4, except instead of a 90-minute movie about Ash fighting Deadites in the cabin, it's a nearly 5-hour-long road trip movie with Ash fighting Deadites. And I ain't complaining, because I loved this season as a whole. Yeah, sure, it has little flaws here and there, but I really want to just sit down and marathon this all as one, and cut out like all the title intros and just play it as like one long movie. And I loved it. I think it's a great continuation of the Evil Dead story, and just something that I've been wanting to see for a long time, and I'm happy I did. Just it paid off wonderfully. So that's the end of my reviews for Ash vs. Evil Dead until Season 2 comes along sometime next year, or this year actually. And when that happens, yeah, I'll be back to talk about them. I hope to revisit this series at some point later on with Sam, who, like I said before, is an even bigger Evil Dead fan than I am. He is a diehard Evil Dead fan, and he has yet to watch the show because he doesn't have stars. So hopefully once he gets around to watching the entire show, I'd love to do something with him where we get to hear his opinion on the show, because I know he'd love to talk about it. I know he'd have a lot to say about this show. So hopefully we'll do that at some point. I'm not guaranteeing it will happen. And I hope we follow through on this, because you know how great we are following through on stuff. This is not the last TV show that we're going to be reviewing. There is one coming out at the end of this month, starting a return to a classic show that I don't want to say what it is in case we don't follow through on it, and it'd be a cool surprise, that Sam and I will be doing together. It's only 6 episodes. It's a revival of a classic show, and I'm really excited for it. So that's about it for now. That's Ash vs. Evil Dead. Again, I had fun doing these reviews. They're not perfect, not as great. This is my first time reviewing a TV show episode, so it felt a little weird and didn't turned out as good as it could have been, in my opinion, but it was a fun thing to do that, a fun thing to just talk about this great show. And yeah, that's about it for now, and until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.
What, you want to control all these demons like The Godfather?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I hated that movie. Too long and boring and not enough boobies. I'm more of a Death Wish kind of guy.